Hey everyone and welcome back. In today's video, we will be learning about Dockers. Now, I'm very sure that you have already heard about the term Docker. In fact, it is booming in today's industry. So, even for the DevOps professional certification, the basic knowledge of Docker is required, and also how Docker can integrate with various AWS services. So, let's go ahead and understand about Docker. Now, Docker is basically an open platform which follows the approach of build once and run anywhere. So, one of the great features of Docker is its compatibility. So, it works with Windows, Linux, Mac. It can work in data center, it can work in cloud, and various others. So, what we will do is we will not spend much time understanding the theoretical part. What I wanted to show you is I wanted to show you the practicality aspect so that the concept of Docker can be understood in the minimal time. So let's go ahead and understand more about it. So a year or maybe a few years earlier, most of our testing was done on a virtual machine. So there were a very vast amount of virtual machine providers. You had VirtualBox, you have VMware, you have KVM, Xen, and various others. So one of the problem with the workstation was that the entire operating systems along with the kernel was downloaded. And if I'll show you, I have a Kali Linux which is downloaded, and if you look into the size, it's like 15.8 GB, and it's huge. Definitely, this has a snapshot related data as well, but the amount of size is quite huge. Now, the reason why it is quite huge because this is an entire operating system altogether. So it contains its own bootloaders, contains its own kernel and everything. Docker, on the other hand, is little different. So before we go ahead look into Dockers in great detail, let's have an overview on how exactly Docker looks like. So I'm in my command prompt in Windows and I have Docker installed. So installing Docker is quite simple. So if you see, I have a Docker Community Edition installed. It's just an exe file that you have to point and click and go ahead and install it. If you do a Docker PS will basically show you all the running containers. Now, if I do a Docker images are basically the images, like you might have a Red Hat image, you might have it's like ISO file. So you might have a Red Hat ISO file or a CentOS ISO file or a Ubuntu ISO file. So this is the kind of a ISO file that you can assume. Now let's assume that I want to work with Ubuntu operating system. I have a script which runs only on Ubuntu operating system and I want to go ahead and run a Ubuntu operating system. So when it comes to virtual machine, the step is you download the Ubuntu ISO, you open up VirtualBox or VMware and you spend like half an hour installing the Ubuntu operating system within your environment. So let's look into how it would work in the Dockerization platform. So the first thing that you would do is you do a Docker pull Ubuntu. And this will pull the latest Ubuntu image from the repository. So if you'll see over here, it is going ahead and pulling the Ubuntu image. So this will take a little time, not that much. If you see, the size of the Docker containers are quite minimum. Alright, so our Ubuntu image is downloaded. So I'll clear the screen, and now if I do a Docker images, you will see that there is a Ubuntu image and the size is actually only 80 MB. So this is quite interesting. So now what we can do is now it's time to go ahead and create a Ubuntu based container. Now in order to do that, what I'll do a Docker run, I'll do a -dt, and you also have to basically specify the image ID. So in order to do that, I'll do a Docker run -dt, you can specify the image ID, and I'll do a bash. Perfect. So now if I do a Docker PS, you will see that I have one Docker container running and the name of the container is elastic_lamar. So I'll do a Docker exec -it elastic-lamarr and I'll go to the bash. So this is a full-fledged Ubuntu based container, and if you do a ls-l, you see this is the entire Ubuntu based container. Now one important thing that you must remember, that this container does not really have a kernel. So if I do ls-l-boot, you will see there are no kernel or bootloader or init RAM FS related files over here. Although this is a full-fledged based Ubuntu operating system. So if I do an apt-get update, it will work perfectly fine. So this is the beauty about Dockerization. It's very simple. It's very easy to install a Docker container and get started. Now the same thing if we do in a full-fledged virtual machine, this would have taken at least half an hour for us to do that. So if I come out of the Docker container with Ctrl+P, Ctrl+Q, and I'll do a Docker PS. Now this is a container. Now you can do a lot of things. So you can stop the container. So let's do a Docker stop. So this is the stopped container. Now I can also take an image of this specific container and I can upload that image to a central repository. So if someone else downloads the image that I have uploaded, that image will have the same configuration that I have put within this specific container. So Docker by itself is a huge topic, and definitely we will have a dedicated course on that. However, in today's video, I just wanted to give you an overview on what Docker is all about. Just a high level overview so that you can have a quick grasp about Docker. So this is it about the high level overview of Docker. I hope you understood what Docker is all about in a 10,000 feet overview way. Now in the next video, we'll understand on how Docker can integrate with the Elastic Beanstalk service. So I hope this has been informative for you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lecture.